right here we have one of the most powerful, one of the most polarizing techniques to ever exist, the jig-head minnow. This right here is our big bite bait spotlight minnow. This is the 4 1/4 inch version in blue gizzard. I love this color because that white belly, when you flash and roll that bait, that white belly really shows off when paired with those translucent clear sides. And as you roll it, it draws attention from a long ways away. It keeps the fish really focused on your bait. You know, as you move that bait, as you shake it, the action of that thing rolling keeps them focused on it because that color's flashing. It's keeping them curious, which is really, really important. Throwing it right here on a 1/4 ounce head. But the big thing with this minnow, especially with smaller minnows like this big bite bait spotlight minnow, is that you don't want to overpower the bait with using too big of a hook. I'm using a 2/0 hook here. You really don't want to go any bigger than that on a 4 1/4 inch minnow. I like to use a size 1, 1/0, 2/0 in certain situations. But you don't want to get too far back into this bait. You don't want to get anywhere near the back of this hollow part because you're going to spine the bait too much. It's going to make it really, really difficult for that bait to move in the way it's supposed to because that tail's just not going to be free enough. So I really like that 2/0 hook. Throwing it on 12-pound leader. This right here is Seaguar Grand Max. I just like it because it's very thin diameter, so it cuts through the water super, super well. But it still has that extra strength, that comes with 12-pound line. Throwing it on the 7.4L Phenix feather. I really like a very light rod, very quick rod, because when I'm shaking this thing, I want a rod that is extremely responsive. Meaning as I shake it, as I kick it, as the butt of this rod hits my forearm and as my finger ticks it down, I want a rod tip that's going to really respond extremely dramatically to that and influence that bait's action in a very rapid way. With a smaller minnow like this, I'm trying to fish it super, super fast most of the time in terms of, I may not be trying to reel it over distance quick, but I'm trying to fish it fast with the rod tip to keep that bait flashing and rolling because, really what intrigues bass and largemouth specifically is a multitude of factors. But, the bigger the bait gets, the more intriguing it gets most of the time. But if you're using a smaller bait like this, you got to make up for the lack of size with increased action, which means that rod selection is super, super important. Using a small hook and using a very limber rod is super important with a minnow because you want to have a rod that allows that bait to do what it needs to do. Because with a minnow, it's all action driven. That's what it's all about. So having a bait like a spotlight minnow with very thin walls, that's hollow, that sits flat and rolls really sharp, and having a rod that's very light like this 7.4L that pairs with it is super, super important. So in terms of that minnow slinging, make sure to pay close attention to your jig head selection and to your rod selection because those are the two most important elements. Okay, so right there we have a largemouth adversary at about 50 feet. So that one's suspended, almost 15 feet down. So he's a little bit deeper, so he's not going to be super splash shy. And really that fish is not moving too much over distance. As I track my trolling motor, he's not changing angle too aggressively. So what I'm going to try to do with that fish, because he's ever so slightly moving away from me, is I'm going to miss him left or right. I'm not going to try to bring it directly over his head and make him turn around. I want him to turn sideways or I want him to come straight at me. I don't want to have to make him 180. So he's about there 50-something feet. So I'm going to make my cast, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a little bit long, and I'm going to swing it tight. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep from shaking that bait too aggressively until he gets up on it. And then as soon as he gets up on it, I'm going to start shaking and rolling that bait, get him engaged with it, and from there I'll just do what he tells me to do. So I'm going to make that cast right there, get my line tight. He's showing interest. He's coming up, so I'm going to use a little bit of speed to try and wake him up. Use a little bit of speed, so he's starting to get hot. He's coming up. He's coming up. Okay, and that fish is lagging behind. So he's struggling to close that distance. So what that tells me right there is maybe my approach was a little bit too high speed right off the rip. I tried to wake him up. This water's 38 degrees, very cold. So I might need to fish him a little bit more direct, either meaning changing a head size or changing my approach a little bit because, as he's gotten closer to the boat, he's gotten more interested, which tells me I may have just outpaced him with speed. He's still locked in on it right there at the trolling motor. I'm going to continue to shake it, continue to let him engage with it, and we'll see if maybe, oh, nope, not quite. So right there, I just outpaced him. So when that fish first showed interest, I tried to use speed to try and incite that aggression, but oftentimes in very cold water, it just doesn't work that way, and that one was not about that life. So right there is a great example of a pretty botched approach. And with that fish, in very cold water, a lot of times I could make another attempt. You know, he'll give me time of day because their you know, attention span when it's very cold is generally pretty short. So that fish would definitely give me another chance if I approached with a different, but I'm just gonna go find another fish. All right, so right here we got a shallow one at distance. That one's up high, so what I'm gonna try to do is I'm trying not to, you know, this water's pretty clear. I'm not gonna hit him dead over the head, and I'm gonna try and make that adjustment from that last cast. So that one didn't like it too fast. So this one I'm gonna miss him a little right because he's coming right. And I'm gonna bring it nice and easy, gentle over his head. I'm not gonna outpace him. I'm just gonna let him do the trick for me. So he's coming, he's coming. Yep, and that was the right adjustment. Oh, man. That doesn't happen too often. Came off. Dadjimmit. All right. Threw back at him, and he's not falling for that again. There's one back behind us, so we're gonna fling another little castaroo back there. Led that one a little hard, I think. Yep, he's a little bit left of me. So I'm gonna make that adjustment. There he is. There's my bait. Here he comes. Here he comes. He's not very big, but he's coming. He's coming. I'm shaking very quick, but still staying slow with the reel. Letting him get up on it. He's not very big. Oh, this one I noticed a little too late. He's up really tight. So I'm gonna use my brakes and I'm gonna wait to make that cast until I get appropriate distance. So now you can see this fish kind of locked in on my boat. So he's focused on my boat movement. So I don't really want to pitch at him right now. He's a little too close. He's gonna be a little persnickety. So I backed us up, use my brakes to give us some space. There he is out at 40. And basically what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna try to get a little bit outside my line for my prop wash. There he is, he's at about 40. And that's gonna be a pretty acceptable cast, I think. So I pitched it out there. I'm just gonna nice, smooth, slow shake over his head. Oh boy, here he comes. Smooth, slow shake. He does not like my prop wash. So, make that cast back out there. Oh, and he hated it. Okay. Here he comes. Here he comes. He got it. Oh, he's a little guy. There's another one right there that's bigger than that one. There's so many up here in this grass. Oh my gosh. He's on it again. He's gonna bite it again. Got him. Got him. It's important to not pull it away from them too hard on a minnow. When they come up and eat it, you're just gonna kind of reel set into them. And if they don't get it, it's important not to speed up and make another cast. Just leave it down there. Let them get up on it again. And a lot of times, if you don't sting them, they'll let you get them again. And that one right there, let me do it to him. And I mean, he didn't just nip it. You know, in very cold water, they get this minnow so good. They get all the way up on it. You let them inhale it. Just keep shaking until your line goes tight. Right there. It's a dang good one on that minnow. So, okay. Right there is a 311. 3 3/4 on that minnow. Threw it over that grass, let him get up on it. He blew through it one time, didn't get it, so I pulled it away, came back and eased right up on it. I kept shaking it until my line went tight. As soon as it did, I just eased back on him, reeled him in. So I threw it a handful of them. Didn't quite get the reaction I needed to. You know, I still generated a couple bites, but I was a little bit outpacing them. This water's really, really cold, and they need to catch up to it. So, since I was outpacing them, I could do it a couple ways. I could upsize my my fluorocarbon leader, create some drag, allow that bait to lift a little bit more because of the line size. But I'm just gonna go straight to the source of the problem, going to an 1/8 ounce head. We're gonna see if that makes the right adjustment, but I think it will. With a minnow, it's really important to pay attention to those little micro interactions, because with a minnow, you can't force them to eat it. They have to choose. And so you really gotta listen to what the fish are telling you. And you really have to listen to those little cues, you know, when fish lag behind and when they show, you know, less interest when you speed up. That tells you need to make that adjustment. So I don't know that it'll do it, but if I had to put a bet on it, I would say this adjustment from that 1/4 ounce to this 1/8 ounce, I think I need to make a sizable adjustment. I think that adjustment will probably do the trick and generate, go from generating 1 out of 2 bites to hopefully almost all the fish I throw at. That 1/4 was a little overpowering. This water's pretty cold. They don't want to move real fast. So I've switched to that 1/8. We're gonna see if that's the right adjustment. This is the first cast with that 1/8 ounce minnow. Oh, I shorted him. That was a terrible cast, but it might still work. Never mind, it's not gonna work. Shorted him really bad. Dang, that was a horrible cast by me. Oh, he's still intrigued. He's still intrigued. Here he comes. Never mind, he did want that 1/8 ouncer. That right there is a solid one. Because I was able to just dance it. I mean, I almost call it like ice fishing. The way that you fish this minnow when it's very, very cold. You just kind of shake it and let them do the rest. Right there. It's a solid, thick little one. On the Spotlight minnow on an 1/8 ounce head. I made an adjustment from a 1/4 to an 1/8. And right now, we are 100% on bite ratio. First one I threw it. Let's see if that's scoreable. That is a 2-3, so it is a scoreable. Squirrel bass on that 1/8 ounce Spotlight minnow. See you later, pal. Oh, goodness gracious. That was the right adjustment. We are 2 for 2. That one was up here blowing around through a school of shad. And I flung that minnow at it. I mean, I could have let it fall on the bottom and he would have ate it. Oh, that's how you like to see him get it right there. Just gone. Another scoreable bass right there. Minnow. Tell you what, they won't minnow themselves. You know, it's cold. I had to come out here and get them. Another 2-3. There's another fish. Imagine that. Oh, look, there's one right there on the edge of the grass. Let's go for the low-hanging fruit. Okay. Slung that 1/8 ounce minnow out there. Shorted him really bad. So I'm going to make that adjustment. Reel it in. He's aware my minnow was there because he changed direction toward that bubble trail there. Okay, we hit him that time. So before too long, he's going to start coming up. Once he engages with that minnow. Never mind, no he's not. He hates me. I don't know why he hates me, but he does. Ooh, there's a couple up there in the grass. Right there at the top of that grass. There's a couple of bass swimming around right there. It's a terrible approach, I guess. Must be the left. Yep, they're the left. There's 2 of them right on the edge of that grass, so they're going to use that grass kind of as their contour to move along. So I'm just going to kind of beat them up the stretch. I threw up the grass line from them. They're going to swim right into it. Oh my gosh, he lit straight up. He lit up. Got him. I mean, that was just textbook. Swimming away from us. Threw it right down the stretch. And as soon as he saw it, he lit up. And another very cold scoreable bass. Ate that minnow. Oh, that's just fun. So when they're using a contour line like that grass right there, just shy of 2-pounder. When they're using a contour line like grass, and I say a contour line, grass is cover, it's not contour, but they treat cover that's in big expanses like vegetation like a contour, meaning they'll travel along it and they'll use it to kind of be their wall to feed against and to travel alongside. So when you see one swimming up or down grass, you can assume pretty accurately that that fish is going to stay on the line. So if you just cast down the grass, you make that presentation down the edge of that cover, you can assume they're going to follow that like they would follow a contour. And so when I made that cast, that fish was swimming away down that grass. And even though technically I didn't know which direction those fish were about to turn, I made the assumption that they were going to follow that grass line, and they did, and walked right into the trap. Textbook. There's one. So out there at 70, you got to keep in mind that the further your beam goes out, the wider it gets. So that fish right there, you know, I can see him. I can turn my trolling motor a good distance, I mean a pretty wide angle, and still see that fish. You know, and just because you see him doesn't mean you're dead on him. So I'm trying to find where that returns the hottest. And what I'm doing with my trolling motor is I'm just going left, right in small increments, just to keep tracking his direction. So as I do this, I'm noticing, you know, I'm letting it go left until I don't see him, right until I don't see him. And as I move, if I pay attention to my trolling motor, I'm going to notice the trolling motor is going to indicate to me which direction that fish is moving, because, you know, if that fish is going right, my far right, when I don't notice him, is going to be further right every time I do a sweep. Right now, my left is further when I do those sweeps. So my trolling motor is getting further left as I do my left right as to the furthest left that it sees it, meaning that fish is moving to the left. So I know he's facing left, he's facing toward that dock up there. So I'm going to try to lead him with a minnow. I'm not trying to turn him around. I'm trying to get it, you know, in his path, but not make him turn around to find it. You know, if I don't know which direction he's facing, it's going to dramatically change my potential bite percentage. So I know he's going left, so I'm going to lead him just a little bit. I'm going to trace that path, and he should come straight up into that path. He did. Straight up into the path. He's right on my bait. He's right on it, and he came straight up and ate it. Just because I knew which direction that fish was facing, I made that approach a lot easier than if I had to turn around, because that fish was pretty hesitant, and I needed, you know, he committed about 25, 30 feet from the boat. If I had to turn him around, that would have been another 10 feet of that follow that would have been wasted, and then I would have been playing with him, trying to get him to commit at, you know, 15 feet from the boat rather than 25, 30. That's a big difference. There's a potential big difference in your minnow commit rate. So knowing which way they're facing is really, really important. And just from taking the time before I made the cast to know which way he was facing, I dramatically changed my bite ratio, and that fish instantly bit. But I still had to work him. So when you're having to work them, it's really important before you ever make that cast to know which way they're facing. Minnow fishing, although at a surface look, at first glance, can look like, you know, all minnows are the same, all jig heads are the same, and the way you approach that is kind of uniform. But the devil is in the details with minnow fishing. Pay attention to those subtle cues, pay attention to where those fish are facing, and really try to refine what you're doing. Because when minnow fishing, you can't make a big adjustment most of the time with the bait, with the head. You know, it's all about making those minute adjustments and finding how those all piece together to help bring that bite ratio as high as possible. Because when they have to choose to bite your bait, like they did with the minnow, you have to play into their fins. And with this minnow right here, making the right calls on head size, making the right calls on bait size, and really paying attention to what direction they're facing are very, very important attributes to catching them. And those are things you absolutely have to pay very close attention to when you're looking at them on scope and shaking that minnow.